Hey guys, Paul here from Meldrum Performance Coaching and Complete Personal Trainer Podcast. Today we are going to be going through the Fat Loss Hierarchy episode 4, which is talking about cardiovascular training. So I've put structured cardiovascular training before weight training in this podcast, in this hierarchy, and a lot of people get a little bit funny about it because a lot of PTs are really attached to the idea that we need to do weight training to lose body fat relative to cardio training. And there's a problem with this. If we've got clients who are general population clients, their only goal is to lose weight. They just want to lose weight. They don't care about how much muscle they have and that kind of stuff. And this is a very common goal in the general population, both male and female, as people get older. They don't really care so much about muscle mass. This doesn't mean we don't do anything for it. They just don't care as much. It's not a priority for them. So we need to make sure that we do that. And it has been shown repeatedly, time after time. And in my mentoring program, I give the references for this and the studies that it's been taken from, that per unit of time invested, cardiovascular training does burn more calories. It does contribute more to the energy output side of the equation than resistance training. This is independent of EPOC as well, so exercise post-oxygen consumption, which is highly overrated, and how much having more muscle increases your metabolic rate. So adding muscle is a really crappy way of increasing your metabolism if you want to lose body fat, because the simple process of building muscle requires calories. It requires you to be in a caloric surplus, which will lead to some body fat gain. It is kind of unavoidable. Like, some people don't gain very much body fat, but it's really hard to do it and not gain any body fat at all. And then the increase in resting metabolic rate is minuscule. Like, it only goes up a couple of calories for every kilo of muscle. So is it really that metabolically expensive? No, it's not really that big a deal. So it's not going to have the impact on results that people think it is. Plus, the time it takes to accrue that muscle tissue is time that you're not losing fat. So these are all things that we need to consider before we make these statements. We need to look at them in a number of different ways to see if they make rational sense and logical sense. And so with the hierarchy, I actually break the aerobic hierarchy down into 5 steps. The first one is to do steps as your first form of aerobic exercise: aerobic energy, anaerobic lactic, and then metabolic resistance training as the preferred way to program. Now, steps, we talked about this in the last podcast, so neat. And steps are still technically cardio. As I alluded to, they're not really spontaneous. Like, tracking steps shows that cannot be spontaneous as it's been tracked. So what I do is I recommend people program steps first. So if you're going to do anything at all, no exercise whatsoever, getting your 10,000 steps or 8,000 steps or whatever number it is, as long as you're doing more general movement per day, this is going to be very important. It's also become kind of trendy to pick on steps and say, oh, the number 10,000 is just undersold to sell step trackers and there's no real evidence for it. And well, there is a lot of evidence for it, and NEAT contributes a ton more to your energy output than, say, your structured exercise activity. And people are now using it as a way to say, oh, people are too stressed to go for a walk. It's going to be too taxing on their system. Wow. People aren't that fragile. And walking has benefits. They're out in the sun, so they're getting vitamin D, they're getting movement, motion is lotion. There's so many benefits towards walking there that I'm not going to be bothered going into and trying to address each of those points. It's not really going to get us anywhere. But steps are first. The next one is the aerobic energy system and anaerobic lactic, which we're going to focus on the most today. The aerobic energy system is really misunderstood. So a lot of personal trainers know how to target certain muscle fibers and certain training outcomes when it comes to anaerobic training, so weight training, but we have no idea how to do aerobic stuff. We need to be able to do our aerobic exercise prescription with the same degree of accuracy that we need for our resistance training prescription. So a lot of people really struggle with this. Quick thing in the aerobic system, it uses oxygen, generate adenosine triphosphate, responsible for long-term energy production, and it's the only system that can utilize and break down fats as well as sugars. Lasts for an extremely long time, but it doesn't generate ATP as fast. That's why you can't move as quickly. Like, if you're using the adenosine triphosphate, phosphate, creatine system, you can sprint really damn quickly or lift really heavy, but you can only do it for a very short period of time. Aerobic system can last forever. Now, with the aerobic system, there's a number of different methods that you can use to actually train it. So the most common one is what we call low intensity steady state cardio. Now, this is your foundation for building the aerobic system. So this is where we're going to focus on today. A lot of people want to do high intensity interval training because they think it burns more calories due to EPOC. It does burn more calories per unit of time in normal cardio because you are working hard, but it's also the recovery demands of the activity, both on the neuromuscular system, the aerobic energy systems, and then also the nervous system as well. So there's a number of different recovery factors that happen with high intensity interval training, plus joints, tendons, etc. Lower intensity steady state cardio will not have the same type of recovery demands, but it can be very important for developing parasympathetic tone. So all these people who say people are too stressed out and too sympathetically driven to do aerobic exercise, if they do low intensity steady state exercise, they increase this parasympathetic tone, which people apparently need so much. So if we're avoiding this and we're avoiding steps, it's kind of a massive leap in logic, and we're missing the forest for the trees and a whole bunch of other expressions, but it's not really the best way to go about doing things. So it's important to do your low intensity steady state. It increases cardiac output, eccentric hypertrophy of the heart, it offsets some of the negative adaptations in the heart wall from weight training and the Valsalva maneuver. It develops a peripheral vascular network. It's a really important thing to do. Low intensity steady state, 30 to 90 minutes a session, 2 to 3 times a week is perfect. You can obviously build it up over time based on the needs of the client. But how do we program it and not be boring as hell for our clients? That's probably the question that is the most interesting to me and should be the most interesting to you and your clients. Now, the thing about developing, cardiac output, vascular network, etc., is the fact that it needs to be it's about the heart rate. The heart rate needs to be 130 to 150 beats a minute. Now, roughly in those ranges, it can change a little bit based on age. Now, the heart's a dumb muscle. It doesn't really know what you're doing as long as the heart rate's in that zone. So a lot of people think, all right, cool, we're just going to do some low intensity steady state training where we just do the same regular repetitive cyclical movements. And those repetitive cyclical movements do have their benefit, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. And they can be really good if you have actual endurance goals. But what we need to do is make our clients, keep them involved, engaged, entertained in the workout, and we can do so much more. So for cardiac output work, what you can do, get the heart rate monitor and create like a circuit of different exercises, some cardiovascular, some calisthenics, some strongman, like sleds, battle ropes, all that kind of fun stuff, assault bike, etc. And put them in a circuit where they move back and forth through this. You can use variety here. You can put low-level corrective exercises if their heart rate gets a little bit too high, so you can tick multiple boxes and in one go while getting them the cardiac output outcomes that they want. So a really good idea would be, say, sled push with something like a thoracic mobility exercise if they needed that, for example. Then you could do assault bike after that, because the assault bike with that rhythmical motion will help improve thoracic and ribcage mobility after that, reciprocal movement. Then you could do maybe like a hamstring drill or something like that, some kettlebell swings, some battle ropes, some lateral lunges, explore different movements, some medicine ball work to get some compression. You can do some really fun stuff with people, and it really allows you to use your imagination to create a better training effect for people. So with fat loss training, just so we keep this podcast under the 10-minute mark, we're at the 9-minute mark now, we need to make sure that with our fat loss clients, in the general population, again, priority one is getting their nutrition on point, getting them into a caloric deficit. From there, we need to look at, that's energy input. Then we need to look at energy output. If we can manipulate our steps first, that's going to give us the best way of increasing energy output. Then aerobic exercise will be better and less stressful on the body than other types of exercise. We need to make sure that it's programmed intelligently. And if you see, and also with variety, so people have some fun with it, because it can get kind of dull being on the treadmill. And then what you want to do is make sure when clients come to you with complaints like, oh, it's too stressful or it's too sympathetic overloading, actually give them the information for it and get them to try it and see how they feel. And I guarantee they're going to feel a lot better. Come back soon, guys, where we talk about the last part of the pyramid, which is strength training.